when I was, running tech companies, we had this strategy where we would patent stuff in the U.S., and that was kind of the most valuable aspect of patenting. But then we had to patent stuff in Europe and sometimes in China or Korea or different places where we sold, because they all had their own patent, capabilities or, laws or whatever it was. What do you think the best strategy is for, especially a startup, when they're getting involved in, starting to protect their intellectual property with patents? I've heard about checkerboarding, and if you have multiple patents, you do some in certain areas. But what do you typically advise clients on those kinds of things? Because it can get pretty expensive.
Oh, it can get extremely expensive. So I've seen an estimate for the sort of total potential spend for a patent that you wanted to protect in, say, the 5 biggest economies in the world. If you said like Europe, China, Japan, Korea, the U.S., obviously, the total lifetime spend on that patent might be $250,000.
Wow.
So, and of that, maybe $15,000 to maybe $25,000 might be your drafting of the application, your filing fees in the U.S., and prosecuting it and getting it issued in the U.S. So your bang for your buck with the United States is very high. The filing fees aren't out of control. For a small company, it's $800 to file the application. Assuming you get it, you may pay another $1,000 to $1,500 in fees before you get the patent issued. Your attorney fees, depending on the complexity of the invention, might be sometimes in the single-digit thousands. But if you want to really, depending on the technology and what it covers, you're probably looking at spending somewhere between 8 and 12 to 15 on attorney fees to get it drafted, and then maybe that much again dealing with the patent office to get it done.
Okay.
So for a small company with a limited budget, sometimes I have clients that come in and say, "Hey, I want to protect this everywhere."
Yeah.
And then you explain to them how much that's going to cost, and they go, "Well, maybe not."
Yeah.
There is a strategy at the end of your, so you have 1 year from your first filing to make a decision on whether you're going to file outside the U.S.
Okay.
One option is to file what's called a patent cooperation treaty application, which is about $4,000, and that effect of that $4,000 basically buys you the right to wait another year and a half past that 1 year deadline before you start spending real money.
Okay.
So sometimes if you have if you have a patent that you consider to be fundamental to your business, if it really is one of those, if you don't have this barrier, then any old person who shows up can just copy what you're doing and run with it. It might be worth at least filing that PCT application to have the opportunity to, hopefully things go really well in a year and a half, you're ready to move. And if you don't, you have to make that decision. So it's one of those boxes that investors like to see checked. You'll get a question that says, what are the barriers to a competitor stealing what you're doing and running with it? One way to say that is, hey, we have patent protection on this. We've filed a PCT application. We have the option to file internationally. A lot of it depends on what stage you're at. But certainly, I've never heard of a company, even like some of the largest pharmaceutical companies might try to patent something in every country in the world.
Sure.
But most of the time what you refer to as checkerboarding is effectively having enough large markets covered that you can, potentially someone who wants to infringe or wants to do the same thing, they can say, well, okay, I can't do it in the U.S. I can't do any of those activities in the U.S. I can't do any of those activities in Europe. I can't do any of those activities in China. Maybe I should take a license worldwide.
Yeah.
So if you have enough barriers there and you've closed off enough markets, it may be worth it to someone to ask you for a license, or if they're going to try to avoid your patents, they're going to have a much reduced market.